Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my very first garden tour. On this day, I harvested some radishes and some lettuce from my backyard garden in growing zone 8A. In this video, I was still working on putting up my arched trellises. All of these are now up, so hopefully they'll be covered in growing vegetables very soon. Here I have a small lettuce plant that volunteered in this pot that was next to my garden bed. I've sown lettuce seeds in this area before, so it was a very happy surprise to see this little guy pop up and do so well. Here's another lettuce plant that's more mature. I've harvested several times from this plant by cutting off the outer leaves. This video was filmed in mid-May, so this lettuce plant has since gone to seed. I could have harvested the whole thing at this size, but I'd never personally seen lettuce flower, and now I'll be able to save all of its seeds. If you wanted to harvest the entire lettuce, you could just cut it off from the root at this stage. I was so in awe of how big this head of lettuce got and just how sturdy it was, because I had never grown a full head of lettuce like this, and it was just so majestic, if you can say that about a head of lettuce. Now we come to my radish bed. Radishes are frequently recommended because they have such a short growing time from seed to harvest. Where I live in zone 8A, we don't have a very long spring before the temperature starts to get hot. I suspect that's why a lot of my radishes didn't bulb up very big. There wasn't enough time before the temperature was too high and they started to go to seed. Because of that problem, I'll definitely plan to grow them in the fall. They really are so much fun to grow because you can harvest them so quickly and watch them grow so big so fast. The radishes that I harvested on this day also had quite a kick and a heat to them, which is usually a common occurrence when they are grown in more warm and hot weather. I am a wimp when it comes to heat, so I would have to eat these dipped in some kind of creamy sauce to offset the heat. Or what I did with these particular radishes that were harvested on this day was I chopped them up and roasted them just like you would roast, say, baby or new potatoes, and that cuts the heat and brings out their natural sweetness, and that is a favorite way to eat radishes in my household. So if you've never seen a radish flowering, this is what it looks like. It's got really pretty little, very light purple, white blossoms. And so I have let several of these at this point in my garden go to seed because, like I mentioned, they produce these little pods that do taste really just like a radish. It's kind of crazy. And then of course you can harvest the seeds, and one radish plant will produce so many seeds to produce several more radishes. And growing in the same bed as the radishes are red Chinese noodle beans. So the plant of the bean will vine all the way up the trellis, and then the actual beans themselves are over a foot long, and they'll hang down into the center of the trellis for this really stunning effect. Here we have yet another volunteer lettuce. I don't know what kind this is. It may be a Russian purple kale, I believe it's called, also called a ragged jack. That's the only thing I can think that this would be, but it looks more like a lettuce than a kale. And here I am harvesting some of that lettuce that I showed you guys. So I'm just going in with one hand, the best that I can, and trying to snip off some of these bottom leaves. They did have some aphids on there, so of course I just rinsed those off really well before I ate them. And here is my total harvest of lettuce leaves and radishes. It's definitely not a very big haul, but I'm usually the only one eating out of my backyard garden, so there's no need for me to grow a lot of volume of food. In these pots, I'm growing dragon tongue bush beans. I've never grown these, but I've heard a lot about them. I think they're one of the most popular beans sold by Baker Creek, and I've heard about them for a few years now that I've been following Jessica over at Roots and Refuge. And over here, speaking of Jessica at Roots and Refuge, in this patch of very unkept, unmowed grass, I have been growing out of a soil bag. So I just spread my seeds into one side of the soil bag where I had cut the top off, and I've just been growing kale. And at this point now, that kale is now gone. It's too hot. I let it dry up, but that's a great thing to do over the winter. Here are all my baby seedlings. So we've got some tomatoes that I've grown from a restaurant tomato that I kept the seeds, and a cucamelon, because I think I sowed that cucamelon seed and it didn't come up. And so I sowed those tomato seeds, and then it got warm enough and the cucamelon seed came up. Of course, that's always how it goes. Some of these cups, nothing germinated in. Let's see, we've got parsley, and I'm just using solo cups for those. Cilantro. I don't have a greenhouse or anything. More cucamelon seeds. So I'm just growing them outside now that it's warm enough. Collard greens. I'm hoping that those will survive the heat and have some greens, since lettuce just really won't survive this zone 8A heat. Okra that had a bird feather in it. A little tiny okra seedling, I should say. I believe that plant is called Lunaria. And then there's a tiny little spring onion. And in this pot, I have another dragon tongue bush bean. And here is another Lunaria plant. I've never grown these, but the leaves are these really cool, like silvery discs. So I was really just curious to see what they would look like. So I thought I would try my hand, and they're growing very easily. They seem to like the sun and the heat and the humidity. Here I have multiple okra plants. These are all Alabama Red from Baker Creek. Another Lunaria plant. And this planter bed has mint as well as chives. If you have been gardening, you may have heard that mint is extremely invasive. So wherever you put it, it will take over that entire space. So I've had the mint in here for a few years now, and the only thing I've ever really put in here is the chives. I've tried putting green onions. I don't know if I did them wrong. My green onions never got past this stage. Do they take a long time? Did I not plant them at the right time of year? I'm not sure, but they stayed very tiny the whole time, really the whole spring. But I love coming out here and picking that mint. These white pots were actually from the Dollar Tree, and I spray painted them white off of the recommendation from Whispering Willow Farms. It's kind of an off-brand copycat green stalk growing container because green stalks are very expensive, and I've just got various flowers growing in there. Once they start to bloom, I will let you guys know what's actually blooming. I kind of just recklessly sowed seeds in those though, so I really couldn't tell you at this point what's growing. And here are more of those spring onions that are really barely bigger than this, and it's at the time that I'm doing this voice recording, it's the first week of June, so I don't know if these just grow very slowly or what. Please, you can feel free to leave a comment at this video if you have any tips for growing spring onions. Here we have my blueberry bush that is really starting to put off some good fruit. They are not quite ripe yet, but I am very excited for when they will be. have no idea what this plant is called. My grandmother gave it to me a few years ago, and it has grown so much since then. It seems like every time I pot it, it immediately grows to fill the new container. Its leaves are like rubbery and they feel so good. I like this plant a lot. Here we have garlic that I really just put in here for an experiment. I had some kitchen garlic from the grocery store that was sprouting, and I thought we'll just plant it because I have a lot of free space, especially at the time, and see what happens. And that was in March, I believe, so way late to be planting garlic in zone 8A. I don't know if it'll do anything, if garlic can grow in the heat of the summer. Like I said, really just an experiment, but since I've never grown garlic before, I'm happy just to try and just to get some experience. If you guys know what happens to garlic that is planted as late as March in zone 8A, let me know. Here I planted some dill, and spoiler alert, it did not germinate. So that's okay, I'll try it again. And on the other side of this bed, I have a row of peas that I did direct sow into this garden bed. They really didn't do well, so I don't know if May just got too hot too quickly, because peas don't do well in the extreme heat, or if some kind of pest got to them. I did make sure to really keep them watered, and a couple of them did come back and are now climbing up the trellis very well, but several of those didn't make it, unfortunately. Peas are a good crop to grow here in zone 8A in the fall, just like radishes, because they do well when it's cool once the plant has reached full maturity. I'm planning to transfer the cucamelons to this bed once they're a little bigger and let them grow up this arched trellis. So my property backs up to this kind of ravine that I'm showing here, and it's covered in all of these just weeds and shrubs as the ground slopes down pretty steeply. There along the edge where you can see those red flags, I'm wanting to try to plant something purposeful and start using that space, but it's very compact, clay, rocky soil. So I'm going to try to grow some okras because I've heard that those roots are really good for kind of breaking up the ground. So I've got several little baby okras here. A lot of them didn't end up making it. It was funny, a lot of them actually did make it to a decent size. And I do have rabbits that live back there in that little ravine. I don't know if rabbits eat okra leaves or if they just didn't make it in that harsh soil. But I'm going to keep trying to plant some more okras back there and see if I can't make that work, because okras will grow just about anywhere. If you've never planted okra, it's so forgiving, and in my experience really will grow in just about any type of soil. And also in my backyard, in that wild area in the ravine, are a ton of wild blackberries that are growing. I don't know if they've been here in years past and I just haven't noticed them, but they seem smaller than regular blackberries that you would buy from the store or that you would grow from seeds from, say, a seed company. They're harder to see in this video because they're still very pale at this point in the footage, but currently, the day that I'm recording this, they are all turning red, and a lot of them have turned that deep blackish purple. I haven't tried any of them yet, and I don't know that I've ever actually tried a wild blackberry, so I'm not sure if the taste is completely the same. So we will see how many I'm actually able to get before all of the birds get to them. And that completes my very first garden tour. Thank you all for watching it. If you liked this video, or if you like garden tours, please like the video so that I'll know. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Comment down below, let me know what you're growing this season, whether in containers or in-ground gardening. Comment down below, let me know if you've grown any of the things that I'm growing. I would greatly appreciate any and all tips, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!